Very good morning, students. This is your commerce teacher Suresh from Government Degree College, Kukatpalli. Today, we will learn about the legality of object. Object is the purpose why contracts are framed. Consideration is the benefit which you derive by performing the contract. So, both object and consideration must be lawful, right? So, what is lawful object? I mean, what is lawful purpose? It is impossible to enlist what are the lawful objects because there are innumerable activities in our day to day life which are lawful. Right from buying a toothbrush, buying articles, going to college, paying fee, whatever it is, our routine life, it is lawful object. So, what our law has cleverly done is it has given the list of unlawful objects, the contrary of which, the opposite of which will be lawful object. Right? So, you already knew from the previous chapter that Section 24 of Indian Contract Act makes agreements void and unlawful if the object is partially or completely unlawful. So now let us see what are the activities which are formally recognized to be unlawful objects. If those objects are not there, then your object of the contract is deemed to be lawful. Right? Let us proceed towards the list of unlawful objects. Friends, few authors argue that unlawful is merely void and only illegal is prohibited. I didn't find such meaning in any English dictionary. So, unlawful is something which is not permitted by law. So, it's obviously illegal. So, I don't take unlawful as a word synonymous to void. So, be that as it may, let us now proceed towards what are the list of unlawful objects or so called illegal objects. Number 1, any act prohibited by the law. Whatever it is, if the object of the contract is prohibited by any existing law for time being in force, it is deemed to be a contract or agreement with unlawful object. I repeat, any act to be performed in the contract, if it is prohibited by any law for time being in the force, the contract is said to be coupled with unlawful object. Rather, I should not say it as a contract, it is only an agreement coupled with unlawful object. Second, any act defeating the provisions of existing law. Sometimes the purpose of contract may not be prohibited by the law, but it is cleverly designed to defeat the provisions of existing laws. Under such circumstances, also, courts can exercise their discretionary powers and declare it as unlawful object. I'll give you two cases to illustrate what are the acts which are defeating the provisions of existing law. First one, Napier versus National Business Agency Limited. In this case, Napier was an employee, National Business Agency Limited was an employer. There was an agreement between these two parties that Napier will join the service of the company on a weekly remuneration of 19 pounds, such that 13 pounds will be paid in terms of cash or wages, and remaining 6 pounds will be paid to meet the expenditure allowance or expense allowance of the employee. So, expense allowance is admissible tax expenditure which employee can show as per the tax provisions existing in those days. So it was proved in the court. We don't know what was the dispute between the parties and why the dispute went to court. All that we have is only the abstract of judgment, wherein court has clearly delivered the judgment that 6 pounds of expenses allowance was designed only to avoid the tax by employee. It was mutually agreed by both the parties. So the activity, the purpose of the contract drafted between Napier and National Business Agency Limited was defeating the provisions of existing tax laws. So that agreement was said to be with unlawful object. Second, Nandalal versus Thomas. What happened in this case is there was an excise law which prohibits the party winning the auction to run liquor shop from admitting new partners or leasing the license or to open branches. So once you win the auction to run the liquor shop for a specified period of time, you should alone do that. You should not take any partner, nor you should give it on lease basis to someone else. But what happened is one person, Nandalal, admitted another person as his partner after obtaining the license to run the liquor shop. So initially they did not do like that. So don't you think it is defeating the provisions of existing excise law? Certainly yes. The law clearly says you should not admit partner or you should not lease it or franchise it. Only one who wins the auction should run the shop. But here admission of partner after obtaining license is deemed to be defeating the provisions of existing law. So we all know that partnership business is not forbidden, but it is defeating the provisions of existing law in this case. Therefore, it is deemed to be of unlawful object. Any act causing mental or physical injury to others. I am sorry, it is mistyped as metal so please correct it as mental. So any act causing mental or physical injury to others. You need not to physically harass someone. Even an agreement drafted to mentally harass someone is also an unlawful object. Hope no discussion is required on this point. It is very clear that mentally or physically harassing someone or injuring someone is an unlawful object. Such agreements are void and illegal. I repeat, please correct the word metal as mental when you read it. Any act damaging the private or public property. It's obvious. It may be tangible property or it may be intangible properties like intellectual properties, trademarks, copyrights, whatever it is. If an agreement is designed to damage the public or private property or private or public asset, it is unlawful object. Clear? Any act which is deemed to be immoral. What is immoral? Something which is unethical, something which is against the well-established standards of the society is called immoral. I'll give you a case law to illustrate it further. Sumitra Devi versus Sulekha Khandu. They both are wife and husbands. They had an agreement at the time of marriage itself for their future separation. So after some time of their marriage, after living for some time in a marital relation, they approached court and requested for divorce on mutual consent because they had agreement at the time of marriage itself for their future separation. But law said this agreement is of immoral object. Why? Our marital institution is very immaculate. If the couple genuinely have the problem, law or court will give some 3 months to 6 months of time with the positive intention that they will set aside the disputes and they will come together. So we want to protect the holiness or immaculate nature of our marital institution. But this type of agreements are immoral because they are undermining the immaculate value system of our marital institution. If this type of agreements are permitted, what happens? They will marry now and separate tomorrow morning. They will marry now and separate after 3 or 4 hours. That means prostitution will be legitimate. So, to avoid that type of problems, what we do is any acts which are deemed to be immoral, like future separation or agreement for concubinage, agreement for human trafficking, though they are voluntarily coming forward, they are all immoral agreements. Therefore, unlawful objects. An act opposed by public policy. It's a very lengthy one. We will see in the next slide what is public policy. Right? Public policy is set of guidelines followed by the state in the larger interest of public. So, to respect the sentiments and emotions of public at large, governments will design a set of guidelines or policies and scrupulously follow them. They are called public policies. So, if your agreements are so drafted which are opposed by the public policy, they are also of unlawful objects. I repeat, there is no specific definition for the word public policy. So, governments will recon the directive principles of the state, the fundamental rights of the states, larger sentiments of public at large, and finally consider the judiciary provisions to design public policies. They differ from issue to issue. So, if your agreements are opposed by such policies, they are unlawful objects. So, now let us see what are the activities opposed by public policies. Well, friends, here is the list of acts generally opposed by public policies. 1. Trading with an alien enemy is opposed by public policy. So, the alien enemy is a person of that country with which our country formally declares a war. The person of the opposite country may be personally a very good friend to you, but he is an alien enemy to the nation at large. So, the logic is simple. When two countries are waging a war, so soldiers are dying or sacrificing their lives, you can't trade at the cost of blood and flesh of our soldiers. That is the sentiment of public at large. Therefore, trading with a alien enemy is opposed by public policy. So, what happens with the agreements which are drafted before beginning of war? I explained you in the earlier chapters. Interfering with the administration of justice. We all know that judiciary process or judicial decisions must be independent. They are indeed, they should be. But if any agreement is drafted to involve with the duties of the justice or judiciary process, they are opposed by public policies, because the verdicts given by judges are seen with greatest sanctity. They should not be questioned by anyone. If you question the verdicts given by judges, if you question any integrity of the verdicts given by judges, it is contempt of court and viewed seriously. Such a great position is granted to judiciary procedure in this country. So, if you form agreements involving the judiciary duties, it is obviously opposed by public policies. Trafficking in public titles. We have public titles like Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, Padma Vibhushan, Bharat Ratna, isn't it? So, if you have agreement with any government official or any politician to traffic the public titles, like example, I will give you 10 lakhs rupees. Just see that I will get Padma Shri award. Don't you think it is opposed by public policy? So these are the civilian awards to those who exhibits the best work in their respective fields. So if you traffic in those public titles for money through agreements, they are opposed by public policy. Trafficking in public offices. Any agreements. For example, I took a promise from you, give me 1 lakh rupees. I will ensure a seat to your daughter in medical college, in government medical college. I will see that merit will be kept aside. We all know that admission into government medical college should be given on merit grounds. So it's a public office. If I traffic in such public offices, made an agreement, then it is opposed by public policy, right? So what about the one who gives money to me? Suppose I promised that I will ensure medical seat in a government medical college to your daughter. Give me 1 lakh rupees. I took 1 lakh rupees, but later on I could not procure any medical seat to your daughter. Can you people go to court against me and get back 1 lakh rupees? No, absolutely not. Why? Because there is a maxim in Latin that our courts scrupulously follow. In pari delicto, potier est conditio defendentis. That means, in case of equal guilt or equal guilty, defendant is in better position than plaintiff. So, I have cheated you. I took bribe from you and then promised that I will ensure some position in public office. But I could not do that. You challenged my position or you sued me to recover that 1 lakh rupees in the court. So the court asks me, did you take that? Of course, sir, I took that, but later on I repented or I felt very sorry for myself. It's an act opposed by public policy. I should not do that. So I could not do that. So I did not ensure any position in public offices to them. Then what about the 1 lakh you have taken? I cannot repay that now. So court will not give maximum penalty to me. So I can go scot-free. That means in case of equal guilty, the plaintiff is defendant is in better position. So the plaintiff is one who challenges me. So he is one who has compromised with public policy and came forward to traffic in public offices. So I am defendant. I am facing the case. So be careful with this provision. In pari delicto, potier est conditio defendentis. Stifling prosecution. That means, give me some money, I will not go to court against your crime. So, we know that trading with felony means one who commits grave crime, is called stifling prosecution. So, it is prohibited by law because it is opposed by public policy, right? Suppose a rape victim is there and the culprit goes to rape victim and says, I will give you 1 lakh rupees, don't sue me in the court. The poor lady may agree for that. But is it a valid compromise? No. Because if you allow him to go scot-free today, tomorrow he will commit more grave crimes. Therefore, law clearly says stifling prosecution is opposed by public policy. Please mind it that this type of stifling prosecution in civil disputes is acceptable. That means settling the civil disputes outside court is valid, but not in the case of criminal disputes. Clear? Maintaining champerty is also opposed by public policies. What is maintenance or champerty? Champerty is encouraging someone to file suit against a third person, though you don't have any direct interest in it. Suppose Mr. A may encourage Mr. B. You please file a suit against Mr. C. I will give you some amount. Indeed, Mr. A has got no interest in this suit, but he just wanted to create trouble to Mr. C. So he is encouraging Mr. B to file a case against Mr. C. This is called champertus agreements. So these are opposed by public policies. That is the reason why courts often says whenever we file a public interest litigation or we file a case to implead ourselves, then court will say, what is your interest in it? If court doesn't find any direct interest of the petitioner, it will simply say it's a champertus agreement. It's opposed by public policies, so we can't entertain that. Agreements restraining parental rights, right? Suppose a poor father sold his son for 10,000 rupees to someone. Later on, he recognized that he did a sin. He wanted to get back his son. Can't he get back? Yes, he can get back. Because the earlier agreement, selling son for 10,000 rupees is prohibiting or restricting his parental right. We all know that father and mother are the natural parents. So that natural rights cannot be deprived for mere agreements. Therefore, they are opposed by public policies. Of course, Adoption deed is different again. If you give your son or daughter to someone in adoption, so they will also get parental rights. That's different thing. But the other way we can see, if you sell the son or if you sell the daughter for some money and forego the parental rights, it's opposed by public policies. Agreements restraining personal liberty, right? Personal liberty is like right to marry someone, right to live with someone. So that agreements cannot be drafted with any lawful object. So they are opposed by public policy. So any agreements restricting your personal liberty granted by constitution of the country is opposed by public policies. Agreements in restraint of trade liberty are opposed by public policies. Clear? So in any trade, I mean it's your right to trade provided you meet all legal formalities. No agreement can prevent your right to trade except in one or two cases. Say for example, I have taken goodwill upon the condition that I will not trade in the same area for so and so time period. So I restrict myself from trading. So it is formally acceptable consideration. Similarly, I may be an independent consultant. So I may join some firm to render my consultancy. So I may sign an agreement with the firm. So long I render my consultancy to your firm, I will not undertake similar activity with other firms. So I am restricting my right to trade, my right to activity by formal agreement. These are valid exemptions. But in other cases, agreements restraining trade liberty are opposed by public policies. Clear? So these are the acts opposed by public policy. And these activities are not there in the agreement, then your object is lawful object and forms lawful contract provided the other formalities or other essential elements are duly fulfilled. Clear? So with this, discussion on lawful object is also completed. In our next class, we will have a discussion on contingent contracts. Right? For time being, please try to answer or attempt these two assignments. Write a detailed note on legality of the object. Here, you must define what is lawful object and you must explain what are the unlawful objects along with the suitable case laws which we have discussed in this chapter. Second, list out the objects which are deemed to be opposed by public policy. Clear? So that's all for now. If you have any doubts, please revert back at 98495 60102 or nsureshnaidu@gmail.com. See you in the next class with contingent contracts. Have a nice day. Bye.